Hello everybody, my name is Slippery Jack and welcome back to another album review. Today I'm going to be talking about the second album by Boards of Canada, Geogaddi. Alright, so I have had a strange relationship with this album in that my opinion of it keeps changing. It's very much a mood album for me. Music Has the Right to Children, while strange and experimental, was very easy for me to digest, and Geogaddi was not. Um, Mainly because this album is, it's a very different album. I mean, it's definitely a Boards of Canada album. It was definitely sounds like it was made by the same band, but there is, the most noticeable difference about this record is its significantly darker mood, and some songs tend to behave a little bit differently. Um, there are 23 tracks on this thing, and 11 of those are short interludes. I've always considered this album to be inferior to Music Has the Right. I think the main reason is just that whole mood factor. I can spin Music Has the Right anytime, no matter what mood I'm in. But Geogaddi, I have to be in this specific mood. This album is quite a downer. It's not something I would want to listen to when I'm in a bad mood, and certainly not when I'm in a good mood. It's weird. I don't even know how to describe the mood I have to be in to listen to this thing. But yeah, it's I'm not really big on the short interludes either. I mean, I rarely give them any mind, and they're not really, most of them are not memorable at all. But I wouldn't want any of them removed. They do help to make up this album, and yeah, I wouldn't want them off of the album, but I kind of wish they were parts of the longer tracks, because like several of them I didn't even notice. They're just kind of a track. But besides a few gripes, I think the biggest reason this album isn't as enjoyable as Music Has the Right is because I didn't listen to it enough. I wish I had spent more time listening to it. If I had, this would probably be on par with Music Has the Right to Children. Unfortunately, like I said before, I can't listen to this album anytime, but coming back to Geogaddi for this review, this album has shot up in quality like never before. Don't get me wrong, I've always loved and respected it, but this time, like, coming back to it to review it, it seems so much better. Like, it's an album that, it's definitely an album that you have to sit down and, really immerse yourself in. It's not an album that, I mean, you can put it on in the background. It makes good study music, definitely. I've done that several times with this thing, but in order to fully enjoy it, you have to, you have to really think about it. You have to analyze all the nooks and crannies, and that's what I've been doing. And yeah, this is, I think the most appealing thing about this album is just how interesting it is. It has so much to offer. It's way more diverse and way more interesting than Music Has the Right. It's the most interesting thing they've ever put out. There are lots of strange samples and noises that do not sound like they are from this earth. There are samples of children everywhere, like even more so than Music Has the Right to Children. The atmosphere is as well as like it's like unlike anything I've ever heard before. It's cold and dark, but it also has that childlike awe thrown in there, like what you got on Music Has the Right to Children. So on this one, I am going to go through the short interludes first, because that's I wanna get those out of the way. Then I'll discuss the real tracks. There isn't really much to the intro that is Ready, Let's Go, but it works fine for an intro. Beware the Friendly Stranger has a dark melody covered in crackles and possibly from vinyl or old VHS tapes. Not the most memorable of the interludes, but it's a great segue into Gyroscope. Dandelion, though, That is an interesting one. That one is very memorable, and it has a sample of Leslie Nielsen talking about volcanic activity accompanied by this backwards melody. In the Annex is also a pretty cool one. Sounds like a heavily treated piano, playing this foreboding yet comforting tune. Smallest Weird Number is not comforting. It's got some creepy flute melodies, and the ending of it is, like, quite terrifying. Energy Warning, it's basically a kid talking about conserving energy. Opening the Mouth has some nice flute melodies, but for the longest time I thought it was part of the beach at Redpoint, but like Beware the Friendly Stranger, it does make a great segue. I saw drones, same thing, took me a long time to notice it, and it's quite forgettable, honestly, though it does sound cool. A is to B, as B is to C, has some vocoders that sound like they are trying to sing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the most monotone, emotionless voice. It also has these weird samples at the end and some treated vocals. It is a really weird track, and it just makes you feel like you are losing your mind. Over the Horizon Radar has a melancholic melody that just sounds really nice, and it's a great contrast to the insanity of A is to B. Diving Station has some piano going with some glitchy sounds that eventually overtake the entire track. Not the most memorable, but it's cool. The album ends with Magic Window, which is 1 minute and 46 seconds of silence. Okay, strange ending, but alright. The real reason why they did this, though, is to bump the album's runtime to 66 minutes and 6 seconds. Yeah, I think there are many moments on this album where BOC is just trying to screw with us. There are lots of little satanic references on this album that you wouldn't notice until you actually dug into it. But yeah, they're kind of everywhere. So, those are the interludes. They're good, but the longer tracks are where it's at. Music is Math has a very bleak atmosphere and does a great job at setting up the mood for the rest of the album. There are lots of sounds hidden beneath its melancholic melody and bombastic percussion, like some birds and some electronic screeching. I especially like the ending, where these weird sounds just completely take over the entire track. And this is a formula that will be repeated several times on this album, including some of their later stuff. And it's I really like this formula. I think it sounds really cool. But yeah, ending of Music is Math. It's just like descends into insanity. It's creepy, but pretty cool. Gyroscope for me is one of the most unsettling things on the entire album. It's got this rhythmic percussion with some almost atonal pads, as well as what sounds like a child saying random numbers. And one thing is for sure, there's a lot of fear in his voice. Sunshine Recorder is way darker than the title suggests. The main melody is very foreboding and sounds like it's been reversed. The build-up here is fantastic. I love that bass line. It really helps build this sense of dread. And a sample of a child saying beautiful place in the most foreboding tone. And I love how the second half, it starts to sound almost like a darker version of Kid for Today, a song from their EP, A Beautiful Place Out in the Country. Interesting. Over the past week, this song has really been a grower. It's become one of my favorites. Julian Candy is a nice break from the darker tracks. It's probably the happiest song on the album, and like Sunshine Recorder, it has grown on me a fair amount during the past week. It's very chill, psychedelic, and despite its brighter mood, it still fits in with the creepiness of the rest of the album. Then there is 1969, which is by far the catchiest track on the album. It's got all these fluttery synths that just sound like you're flying, and sampled vocals are probably the catchiest part, as well as the vocoders in the second half saying 1969 in the sunshine. Man, I love that part. The vocoders really add to the melody and flavor of this song. This is some fantastic stuff. And the beach at Redpoint is this one is honestly one of the most underrated BOC songs. It's one that I've always loved this one. It's significantly darker than 1969, but I love just how weird and interesting it is. It's if you listen closely, you can hear what sounds like running water, and the mood and atmosphere is just so I don't even know how to describe it. It's such a unique track, and it's just calming but dark, and it just keeps it's foreboding as well. And the way it builds, it's kind of like music is math, where it doesn't really descend into insanity, but it just builds to become like more and more eerie as the track goes on. It's really awesome. Opening the Mouth continues that build, I guess, but it's just more quiet with some flute melodies, but it really like but yeah, like I said, it's a great segue into Alpha and Omega, which has a very mysterious sounding main melody and some Indian percussion, some flute samples here and there. It's a very immersive track, and one that's one of the most engaging and interesting these guys have ever put out. I love those, like, the breathing sounds in the second half. It really helps enhance that atmosphere, as well as the yellow somewhere in there rather than orange. Yeah, as it gets close to the end, it just becomes noisier and noisier, and it just the whole song is just enveloped by static, and it's just gets like really spacey at the end. It's yeah, I don't know why. I've always loved this song, but I never really think about it when thinking about BOC. It's one I always forget about, but then when I come back here, I'm like, wow, I forgot how cool this is. Oh yeah, and you know those how lots of people say, like, if you reverse certain songs, you'll hear satanic messages? Well, that couldn't be more true than with Alpha and Omega. If I didn't even notice it, but there are like some very quiet voice samples, and I looked up the lyrics, and it says, haha, Alpha and Omega, yellow, and or I'm a goddarn Satanist, and if I wanted, I'd be in this business too. Wow, is BOC secretly Satanist or something? And speaking of Satan, the next track is called The Devil Is in the Details, which has a synth melody that is strangely catchy, and a heavily treated voice giving a meditation, and a kid whining and screaming. And I don't know, it's not a track that I ever listen to out of context, but it's just strangely enjoyable. That kid, like, screaming and whining is very memorable. It makes this track stick in my head. This one also has a little satanic message in its melody and bass line, which contains 3 major 6 notes, or 666. BOC really loves screwing with us, don't they? Dawn Chorus, on the other hand, is much more pleasant, but it still keeps the same ethos as the rest of the album. It's very, very trippy and slightly creepy, but also very beautiful. It's it's very underrated. I love it. You Could Feel the Sky as an off-kilter beat, if you could even call it a beat, with some dark, mysterious pads over it, some flutes near the end. There are some orchestral pads that come in that sound really awesome. It's very down-tempo, but highly memorable and has a very strong emotional impact on me. Corsair is a straight ambient track that's quite somber. It's not really my favorite, and I never go and listen to this one out of context, but it makes for a good closer of the album, sort of. I guess if though Magic Window does exist. And something really weird I found about Corsair one time is that if you played a song backwards, it sounds exactly the same as it does forward. There's like a video on YouTube somewhere of the entire Geogaddi album played backwards, and yeah, it's some interesting stuff. I haven't sat through the entire thing, but I went and I listened to some of the stuff on there, and yeah, I'd recommend giving that a listen. And overall, Geogaddi is a stellar album. Some tracks are better than others, but even the ones that are not as strong still have their place on this album, and it wouldn't be complete if they were missing. There are many fantastic moments on this album, and all the strong tracks, you know, almost every single one of those longer tracks are top 10 potential. And yeah, that is, by the way, I am considering doing a top 10 best Boards of Canada songs when I am done with this discography. I thought that kind of sounded like fun. However, saying it is as good as Music Has to Write is a stretch. Mainly because I cannot listen to it as much as that album, and that album is arguably more consistent. But one thing is for sure, in terms of artistic brilliance, Geogaddi trumps that album. It is definitely their most diverse, interesting, and most unique album they have ever put out. It's a hard album to understand, but if any of you were put off by its dark atmosphere and demented nature, keep listening, and perhaps you will one day discover how great it is. I am overall feeling a 93 out of 100. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe for more entertainment, and to support this channel. And drop a comment and tell me what you think about this album. What else do you think I should review, or just like, you know, your thoughts on Boards of Canada in general? I wanna know what you guys think. So yeah, that is all for today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.